You're listening to the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast. The podcast for the off-roader, the short attention. Oh, look, a squirrel. Welcome to the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki G. And I'm here to ramble on about all things off-road for the next 10 minutes or so. This is a podcast for off-roaders, by off-roaders, where I walk the streets and talk to fellow off-roaders and hear what's on your mind. Before we get started, let's pay some bills here and hear from our sponsors. But we ain't got none. Ain't nobody got time for that. All right, so the question I have this week is about lockers and winches. Now, we've all heard light bars, lockers before light bars. And I got to admit, I'm guilty. I've got a light bar before I got lockers. And I got stuck quite a bit. And people I off-road with coined the phrase for me. They call me no grip slip. And then I finally got a true track in the rear. Well, that sounds nasty. But anyhow, so I'm kind of limited slip type / locked in the back. And it's helped me get through some stuff and keep up the crowd. My big question is, though, yeah, you should get lockers before light bars, but should you get a winch before lockers? And so I head out to the streets and hear what a few people have to say about it.
What's up, Nick? Gonna answer your questions here. Which should come first, lockers or a winch? Well, I say a winch. I've got lockers and needed a winch, so if you don't have lockers, you definitely need a winch.
All right, thanks, Clint. And Clint's a fellow good old Carolina boy like me. And you can catch Clint on his YouTube channel, Project Napalm JL, where he's working on his Jeep, amongst other things. Pretty interesting channel.
For me, I would say definitely a winch before lockers, because the winch is actually I call a safety recovery safety gear. So you would need that before lockers. You can wheel before lockers, definitely. In fact, actually, I think it's a good idea because it teaches you to wheel the rig you have before you upgrade and rely on technology or lockers or other things. It kind of gets you the grassroots skills of wheeling.
All right, thanks, Mark. That's Mark from FM Jeeping, and you can catch him at his YouTube channel, FM Jeeping. And he's also on the gram and on Twitter, too, and Facebook, and all. He's up on all that social media stuff.
Hey, Nick. Thanks so much for your question. And that question was that everybody has heard of lights before lockers, but what do you really think should come first? Lockers or a winch? And my thought is that you should probably get a winch before you get lockers, and really for the main reason of being that a winch can get you out of trouble once you get yourself into trouble. Not only that, but it can also help others out on the trail if they get stuck or broken down as well. Where a locker can get you into trouble and get you out of it, it can also make you get into deeper trouble and get into a more potential dangerous situation. Whereas if you had a winch, you could get yourself out of that dangerous situation if you put yourself into it. So I think you should get a winch before you should get lockers. Thanks so much for asking. This was Jimmy Jet from Snail Trail 4x4.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jet. Appreciate it.
So I've wheeled for most, in fact, almost all of my wheeling career with no winch, and I only for a short time had a rear locker in my last Jeep. So personally, I feel like it's a great experience to just get out there and wheel with what you got. But if I had to pick one, whether I was buying lockers or a winch first, I would probably say the right thing to get first is a winch, because you're going to find a winch to be a lot more handy than your lockers early on in the sport. Lockers are great, and like I said, on that last Jeep, I had no winch, but I had lockers. I had a rear locker anyway, but I kind of fell into that. It wasn't necessarily because I went out and bought it. Winches ain't cheap, and neither are lockers, so, you know, they're both expensive items. But I'd say a winch will have a lot more use to you than a locker early on. So I'm going to go with winch.
All right, and that was Nate from SWB Crawler, who runs the SWB Crawler website and the YouTube channel, and he's on the gram and the Twitter, the Facebook, and all that other social media stuff, as well as other things. Nate also started the Facebook group 4X Tubers, which is a Facebook page for YouTube creators that are four-wheel drive based. And that's where people bounce ideas and get technical information and stuff. And it's a good group to hang out with. And that's how I got the inspiration for this podcast, is from those guys. And they helped me out a lot. Thanks, guys. And thanks, Nate. And thanks, everybody else that called in. And I've got to play devil's advocate here. How I feel about lockers before winch. I think I feel you should have lockers before winch under certain circumstances, because winch comes in handy, but I use my winch mostly to get other people out of trouble and to do some yard work around the house. I've used my winch more to pull out stumps and shrubs than I have recover my Jeep. But that being said, I very, very rarely wheel alone. And if I do wheel alone, it's just very mild, slight dirt road stuff. And if it gets too wild, I turn around and go back, for the simple fact that it's dangerous to get stuck out there by yourself, especially in an off-camber situation and some gnarly stuff. If you're just stuck in the mud, that's a different story. Yeah, I think lockers before winch. If you're going to wheel with people, if you're going to go out there and overland alone, then definitely self-recovery is the way to go. And my recovery method of choice is a tow strap attached to the schmuck in front of you. And I say schmuck because people draw straws on if they're going to be in front of me or behind me. Because nobody wants to be in front of me because they know they're going to have to be dragging me around the trails. I save a lot on gas that way. No, I'm just kidding. I appreciate everybody that hooks up to me. Chip, if you're listening, I know we joke about it, but I appreciate all the times you pull me out. All right, now it's time for the question of the month. And the question of the month I have this week is, if my head is made of veal, which it is clearly not, what would the street value be?
If your head was made of veal, yeah, that's a very good question, Nikki G. I don't know. It's a really tough one to answer. I don't know what the going rate of veal is and how much your head weighs. Are we going with like the actual weight of your head, or are we going with like the volume of your head versus the weight of veal, right? So that'd be a different thing. So it's difficult to say, but I'm going to go with $48. How's that? Street value on veal. That just sounds dirty.
All right, thank you, Nate. And I got to say, no sale. All right, if you want to ask a question, or if you have an answer to a question you'd like to put in, and keep in mind, everything you say will be on the air. Full disclosure. You can contact me at 10minuteoffroad@gmail.com. That's 10minuteoffroad@gmail.com. I'm on the Instagram, 10minuteoffroad. I'm on Twitter at 10minuteoffroad. And I don't have a Facebook yet. I don't like Facebook. It's getting too politically charged for me, but that's a social media thing I guess we're going to have to deal with. All right, boys and girls, thanks a lot, and I'll chat at you later. Nikki G signing out and saying, wheel what you got and be happy.